Sephiroth is on a scorched field, desecrated from an unknown battle. He is trying desperately to call a contact named Genesis Rhapsody, who doesn't seem to be responding to his calls. New phone who dis? A dog barks in the distance, and trees begin ruffling. A hooded figure then launches an attack on Sephiroth. Wide open, he says. This hooded man has a sense of familiarity with Sephiroth, telling him it's been a while, and this figure mockingly asks Sephiroth if he's trying to phone a friend. Sephiroth asks how the stranger seemingly knows all these things, and the cloaked figure responds, "Because I'm a hero." Sephiroth then generates an overwhelming fire spell, stunning this interloper, letting him know that you are my enemy. This snappy little cutscene is used to grip you into Final Fantasy VII Evercrisis Episode 1, and the context of this scene isn't discovered all the way until Chapter 8, but don't worry, we'll make it there, one day. Maybe, if people like this video for sure, barring any accidents or genocide attempts from corrupt villainous organizations. Is that foreshadowing? Maybe. But this is Episode 1, Chapter 1, Rhadore Archipelago Survey. We find this cloaked figure named Glenn seemingly a few years back now. He's the leader of a small team, a team that seems a little uneasy around Glenn. Glenn's a little rough around the edges. Matt, one of his team members, even mentions it feels like Glenn might hit him, which could give Glenn a bad reputation. To which Glenn comments, "A bad rep's better than none." Quite the brazen little guy we got leading this team here, huh? Glenn seems to be excited that he's leading his first team. However, this excitement gets cut short as his helicopter is shot out of the sky. In the wreckage, Glenn, delirious, is coming back to his senses, and he calls out to his grandma? Hold on, is this Glenn guy actually a sweetie? Once too, Glenn rushes over to his team member, Lucia, checking her wounds to make sure she's okay. Lucia says in her usual dismissive way that she's fine, and Glenn is wasting his time checking on her wounds. Glenn says he would do anything for a squad mate. Aw, Glenn, sweetie, you do care. The two realize they have been split up from Matt, and the pilots are gone. The pilots? F them. They're in the ocean. We didn't even give them character models, so who cares about them? Matt, though, who's gotten the nickname Professor from Glenn now, he seems pretty cool, and he got budgeted with a character model, so yeah, we should probably go save that guy, right? Glenn and Lucia start calling out Matt's name, but all it does is attract some very strange monsters, the kind of which Glenn has never seen before. After making quick work of the beasts, Glenn and Lucia recover some fresh clothes and the Mako detection kit from the helicopter before setting out to find Matt. For those of you who don't know, Mako is basically the liquefied life force of the planet. It's used in a handful of different applications, but for the most part right now, all you need to know is Shenra uses it as a fuel source, and it harvests this fuel source from the planet using less than safe and environmentally damaging reactors. Glenn and Lucia are both excited that they found this Mako detection kit. It's still working, and they need it to complete their mission. Glenn and Lucia carry on their search for Matt, Glenn jokingly saying that Matt can't die because, well, Glenn still owes Matt money, and he doesn't want to seem like the type of guy who doesn't pay his debts. But I thought no rep was better than a bad rep, Glenn? Lucia comments how they are Soldier P-Class 0, born from Project Zero, a passive model class of soldier, which means to her that if they die, 0 people will care. Glenn basically responds by saying, well, right now I'm alive, and I care. After some more healthy frog smashing, Glenn and Lucia are ambushed. "Stop right there," the voice decrees to them. It turns out to only be Matt, saying Glenn and Lucia are being far too loud. After some banter between Glenn and Matt about Matt not being happy with the nickname Professor, the group starts to talk about their objective. Matt reminds the group that their mission is to survey the main island of Rhadore to find a suitable site where Shinra can build new Mako reactors. However, after being shot down by the locals, they don't know which island in the chain they're even on. What they do know is that the main island was home of the Rhadorians, a group of people that Shinra apparently once tried to exterminate before, making them hostile to the group, which might be the reason they shot down a Shinra helicopter on site. Because of the fear that there may still be some Rhadorians left and that they'll be hostile to Shinra, that's the main reason they sent P0 class soldiers to survey the land, since soldiers are a bit more capable than regular officers, and in P0's case, much more expendable. The team continues on, surveying the land, realizing they are most likely on one of the smaller islands in the chain, and they reminisce about some of their time together in basic training, but mostly how they once fought very grotesque monsters in the VR training. As they explore, they encounter more and more strange creatures, and they're starting to wonder if maybe the Rhadorians, like the nation of Wutai, could be using monsters in their military. But Lucia comments on how it can be really hard to tame monsters. But the lack of military personnel and people in general has Glenn feeling like they might be missing something. Team Glenn continues to explore the coast, slowly and slowly, being more overwhelmed by the number of creatures attacking them. Lucia and Matt both comment how this is starting to get exhausting and out of hand, but Glenn, as a leader, continues to push them on. Eventually, the numbers start getting too much for them, and their backs are now against the wall. A strange dog suddenly barks, causing confusion and a brief distraction. Glenn then asks Lucia for her gun, Queen, so Glenn can shoot the dog and use it as a distraction. Glenn, make up your mind. Are you sweet or are you a psycho? Thankfully, Lucia says no, and leave her gun, Queen, and the dog alone. And a young boy yells out to Glenn and the team to follow the dog. The team fears that the boy, who appears to be Rhadorian, might be leading them into a trap, but Glenn is willing to take this risk to get his squad out of this frog-infested coast. The boy and his dog end up leading Team Glenn to an orchard, Matt pointing out that the fruit here is really strange and might have been created through some mutation, and it seems to be able to keep large creatures away. However, some smaller creatures, like them, seek shelter here. The group does, however, get a small rest in this orchard. However, Matt is still very suspicious of this lone kid, but Matt trusts Glenn's instincts for some reason, and Glenn believes that this kid means well and is actually trying to help them. Matt does remind Glenn that they have an objective, so Glenn needs to make sure he doesn't do anything that might blow this mission. Lucia is infatuated with this dog, and asks the boy what the dog's name is, learning that the dog's name is Refu. The boy is about to introduce himself, but the group and their conversation is interrupted by a very large monster, the Baylor King, and he is rushing towards the orchard. Glenn and the team ready up and face this Baylor King in combat, easily defeating him with their soldier abilities. The boy, thankful for Glenn's team now saving his life, mentions that this creature has never come to this orchard before and thinks something might be off with the mana flow. Hold on, what's a mana flow? Is this another name for Mako? Glenn returns the thanks to the boy, since he's the one who saved them in the first place, bringing them to this orchard, and without his help, they would have been Baylor food on the beach. The boy eventually asks the team if they're from Shinra, and Glenn answers his question, but tells the boy that they're emissaries sent by Shinra to make sure any embers of war that could be put out are. And Matt chimes in, peacefully, of course. But this boy, he's no fool, and he sees through their lie, and he calls them out on it. So who is this strange Rhadorian boy? Is he friend? Is he foe? And why is he here all alone? Will Glenn's team continue on with their mission of trying to find a place to put a Mako reactor? And what is this boy talking about when he says the mana flow is off, making the creatures act strange? I guess we won't find out till chapter 2, will we? And chapter 2 is right now. Rosen's duty. Did we have a slight wardrobe change? Maybe it's a different day. But let's get into chapter 2. The boy gives his name, Rosen, and Glenn comes clean and admits the truth of what their mission really is. To survey the island to find new locations for Mako reactors. Rosen tells them that they are on the island of Sajid. Yeah, I'm probably saying that wrong. Which is a small island to the south of the main island. Rosen says he came here by boat, and if the team wants, they can have his boat. Lucia seems a little uneasy, thinking it was way too easy to get the boat, and Rosen tells them that he just wants them to leave his island as soon as possible, and he's willing to help them do so. I guess Rosen really doesn't want visitors here, huh? After a quick monster ambush, Rosen walks the squad to the boat, and on the way there they pass the house that Rosen lives in, which has a giant chimney next to it, and it's currently under attack by a horde of Baylor. Rosen desperately begs Glenn and his team to get them off the chimney, as he says the chimney is more important than his own life. Lucy is a bit taken back by Rosen's overall concern and panic over this chimney, but Glenn tells the team to engage. After clearing the beasts out, Rosen thanks them, and informs them that the creatures are starting to act strange because ever since their crash they've disrupted the flow of mana. He then offers the team some tea. Rosen's a little bipolar, isn't he? During tea time, Glenn tries to break the ice a little bit, asking Rosen if he lives here alone. Rosen starts to explain that what Team Glenn call Mako, the Rhadorian people refer to as mana, and these waters right off the coast are rich in mana. But the flow of mana can change dramatically and can turn into a torrent, which for us basically is like a hurricane. And the Rhadorian people have almost been wiped out by these storms several times throughout their history. The first signs of the torrents appearing is the ground will start rumbling, and then the waters just outside will begin to glow. Rosen mentions that there are various other signs as well, and he's been trained to look out for them, even when he's sleeping. Rosen then lets them know that he's been here for about a year and he will remain on this island alone until the day he dies. But being the Eye of Rhadore is a great honor to him and to his people, and he's happy that once his duty is complete that he will return to the planet. Glenn really wants to give Rosen a thank you for helping, but Rosen's request is still the same. Just leave this place and forget it exists. Matt then observes that Rosen has a strange amount of cups in his place for someone who lives alone and asks him why. Honestly, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Rosen's clearly a millennial. He has his water cup, he has his coffee cup, he has his alcohol cup, and of course, his tasty beverage. It's pretty explanatory, Matt. You should know these things. But Rosen tells him that the reason he has so many cups is that the Eyes of Rhadore that came before him have all left cups. Saying this, it reminds Rosen, and he makes a request to the team, asking them to gather him soil and logs. These materials can be hard for Rosen to get because the island is full of monsters, and Refu's bark can only scare them away so much. So Glenn moves the team out on this little errand. When returning the soil, Matt again asks his famous question, why? Rosen tells him that the soil is infused with spirit, aka the soil is rich with Mako, and Rosen will use this mana-rich soil to craft a cup for the next Eye of Rhadore. And each Eye of Rhadore crafts a cup as an act of dedication and devotion for the next generation. Glenn then asks Rosen if he can make them a cup to symbolize their friendship, but since it'll take a month to make the cup, Glenn says never mind. They then go on to gather wood for the chimney. During their lumber run, Rosen says he can carry his share of the load, but Glenn refuses to let Rosen help, and Glenn claims that he'll never be able to pay Rosen back if Rosen keeps trying to help out. Once back, Lucia makes the point that they've done all this to help Rosen, but they haven't done anything to thank Refu yet. I mean, you gotta respect the pets, right, Rev? Why do you look so scared? The team then goes on to gather meat for Refu. Matt calls out Glenn, saying that he's showing a lot of concern for this kid, which is a little bit out of character. Glenn says that the kid reminds him of himself, and that being alone on this island would drive Glenn crazy. Aw, look at Glenn trying to be a sweetie again. Once they return with the meat, Rosen informs them that Refu has gone ahead to scout out the boat, but per usual, the boat is under attack by Baylor and is now damaged. Matt thinks they should pop the distress signal they have to call for help. Glenn shoots that idea down, saying that they can get some parts from the helicopter to fix the boat motor. As the team heads off, Rosen tells Glenn, if you call for help, the flow of mana will greatly be disrupted. Rosen's way of saying that if you bring Shinra to this island, nature is going to pop off. The team starts their journey north, having some friendly banter and bonding moments, cracking jokes about getting rich on writing an encyclopedia on the fauna and crazy monsters found on this island. Which, speaking of crazy monsters, as the group journeys on, they are attacked by a new, much larger monster. But once defeated, they are able to quickly gather the helicopter parts they need. Matt then fixes the boat, while Glenn and Lucia return to Rosen and chat with him some more. Glenn then asks Rosen, why is Rosen helping them, knowing what his team's intentions are on the main island, and if he's okay with what they're doing. Rosen says he knows that he couldn't stop Glenn's team even if he tried, and it would be a waste of his life, but he knows the strongest warriors of Rhadore will be there waiting on the main island for them. Lucia tries to crack a joke about the idea of maybe using Rosen as a hostage, but Rosen says his people aren't afraid of death when the lives of others are at stake. Alright Rosen, be a little gangster about it, okay. Glenn's still having a soft spot for Rosen, asks if he has any family at all on the main island, and Rosen tells him no. His family died a long time ago in an accident at sea. Refu is the only family he has. Matt comes to gather Glenn and Lucia now that the boat is fixed, and it is time for them to say their goodbyes. Rosen wishes to see them off on their journey, but he again asks Glenn a final request. Please, forget about this place. As Rosen sees them off, he is thanking for their help. Glenn's seemingly very upset about leaving Rosen here all alone. Rosen tells them to head south, and Rosen again bows, saying goodbye, wishing them all a safe trip. And that's the end of chapter 2. So why is Rosen so insistent on everyone leaving this island alone? And will the strongest Rhadore warriors really give Glenn, a team of soldiers, that much of a run for their money? And did Rosen even give him the right direction to the island? I mean, how hilarious would it be if he told them to go in the complete opposite direction? I mean, I'm not saying that's what I would have done if a bunch of soldiers said they were going to kill my entire race of people, but I mean, it doesn't seem like a bad idea. So I haven't done one of these before where I break down the stories. If you liked it, leave me a comment, sub, let me know. If enough people like it, I'll keep chucking through the story. I'll probably still do a few more of these anyway, just because. I think it is a decent story overall, and that, especially in the later chapters, some of the stuff will actually impact the story of the next remake game, which is why I'm just trying to share it and get it out there, because getting through the mobile game is a little bit of a slog, I feel. So if there's anything I should improve upon, let me know so I can get that going in the next chapter. And if you enjoy this sub, wait for the next one or watch one of my other videos. Anyways, later nerds.